As the United States closes its borders with Mexico, Venezuelan migrants remain stuck in Mexico and complain that they do not wish to remain in Mexico, they don't like Mexico, they don't like Mexican food, they don't like Mexican salaries when they work, and they expect to arrive to the United States and enjoy full benefits of five-star hotel rooms, free medical assistance, and other amenities which have been sold to them by corrupt people at the top of the global hierarchy who have invented these massive migration movements. As a Venezuelan who remains in Venezuela, who has seen almost half of our population flee our country, I expect justice, and those entrepreneurs of the global community who have invented this mass migration movement full of psychological and publicity propaganda to make people despise their home country and flee and clutter other countries with their presence, that must be punished by the international community or international courts, because Venezuela has been getting emptied of both capable and incapable populations, and those who remain are now expected to overthrow the regime only with our means, because those who fled at the end are responsible for their lives in their countries of destination. Countries such as Mexico should enforce more thoroughly their immigration laws, as they are becoming full of Venezuelans who do not wish to promote anything for the growth of Mexican culture. And as a Venezuelan in Venezuela, that this is particularly shameful to me. My nationality is being mocked and ridiculed elsewhere in the world because we Venezuelans tend to be seen as a community of lazy people who expect lots of rights, who do not wish to perform any duties, and who do not value education. And that should not be the case. Those who started campaigns of emigration should be led accountable in the judiciary because they have provoked serious disorders both in Venezuela, the rest of Latin America, and the United States. It is necessary that Donald Trump, once he takes office, resolves with other American countries the deportation strategies accompanied by a thorough clarification on what the necessary steps should be for legal migration. At this point, however, illegal immigration has been so widespread that for the time being, legal migration should be kept as a minimum until this sickness of promoting people to leave their roots and go to other countries just as if it were a sport should be eradicated. Meanwhile, Venezuelans around the world will have an opportunity today to demonstrate that we are not only inconvenient migrants cluttering the streets and cities worldwide. As a community, we should strive to show the planet that Venezuelans can be organized in their protest against a regime that must be ousted. The International Criminal Court has known the Venezuelan cases of human rights abuses by the tyranny and has done nothing because attorney of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, is corrupt and he has family ties with lawyers of the Maduro regime. He has issued arrest orders against Putin and Netanyahu and nothing against Maduro or Diosdado Cabello. Still, Argentine courts, based on international law, have already prosecuted and declared guilty those who usurp power in Venezuela, which means that Interpol and the United States and other interested members of the international community are legally bound to capture such dictators and human rights violators and take them into prisons of the international community. Venezuelans around the world gather in cities across the planet to request governments to take immediate action so that democracy can swiftly be restored in Venezuela on January 10th, which is the date when our president-elect Edmundo González Urrutia, democratically acclaimed by 2/3 of our population by a landslide, and who should restore free market economics and democracy into Venezuela. Once we get our house in order, we will be able to receive all the deported migrants who are cluttering the international community. It is time for Venezuela to restore its image, which is right now very shameful, because we should make Venezuela great again as a country that excels in culture, economics, and happiness. That has no longer happened for a long time. It will be important that the citizens of Venezuela recognize that even though we have rights, we also have duties. When we migrate into other countries, we should respect the laws of such countries, and it sounds like we are not doing that. Reports from Peru, Chile, and Ecuador suggest that not only Mexico and the United States are getting fed up with the lazy attitude of Venezuelan migrants who complain about economic hardship and expect the international community to provide for them. That is unacceptable, and a cultural change must be promoted to overcome this educational deficit. Meanwhile, we are hearing reports that leaders of the Venezuelan regime and of the Colombian democratically elected government with roots in guerrilla warfare of the 20th century are together on an exclusive island on the Caribbean coast of Colombia, the Rosario Islands. The agenda of such summit has not been disclosed. Conversations are secret, and it could be a good opportunity to remind the international community that many of the Venezuelan attendees at such meeting are wanted by international justice and could be captured. In particular, Diosdado Cabello and Vladimir Padrino Lopez are subject to various sanctions and arrest orders made by the international community, as they are responsible for the death and prison of thousands of Venezuelans who were just protesting for political reasons, as we all want to get rid of dictatorship. Venezuelans will continue making headlines within the planet. Some Venezuelans make headlines because they abuse the hospitality of host countries, promoting illegal migration, while other Venezuelans should be protesting massively both within the country and in other countries within the international community, because we must get rid of dictatorship. The Venezuelan cause is also the cause of Cuba, the cause of Nicaragua, and the cause of Bolivia. We need to get rid, Latin America, of dictatorships. We need the United States to take swift action and to follow Monroe Doctrine. It is interesting that Donald Trump will follow the 1798 immigration law of the United States when the country was just becoming independent, as well as the Monroe Doctrine of 1823, which means that the United States is getting back to the roots designed by the founding fathers, which is fabulous and which should be also applied to the rest of the American continent. If failed countries such as Venezuela or Cuba or Nicaragua or Bolivia are unable to restore democracy and restore rights and restore free market, if we are unable to make those responsible for crimes pay their prison time, and if we promote impunity, our countries will be failed and will not be liable, and we will need more explicit United States interference in order to restore law and order. Law and order are tantamount for peace and prosperity. Law and order are utterly lacking in this planet and should be our priority. During too much time, the woke community has promoted laziness and a sense of guilt so that intelligent and hardworking people feel compassionate and sorry for those who are supposed to be needy, and they have been working for free to make a new generation completely dependent on outside help, and the terrible results of this lazy policy are reflected on the Venezuelan migrants that are cluttering Mexico, who do not thank Mexicans for receiving them in their country and who expect to be treated as if they were celebrities. This is an unfortunate situation that must be solved effectively by the Donald Trump administration, and the Mexican government must take notice that if they do not promote law and order within their drug cartel controlled country, the United States will. And of course, Venezuelan dictatorship will be swiftly removed sooner than later, which will provide a great opportunity for Venezuelans around the world to voluntarily come back to their homeland to make Venezuela great again. Dictator Nicolas Maduro, all he wants is to remain in power, and he is cleverly playing the need of the United States to deport as many illegals as possible, and he's lobbying an obscene amount of money so that journalism in the United States gets an impression that the dictator who did not win the elections and the president-elect who did win elections could get along well. The promise of Nicolas Maduro to open petroleum business opportunities in Venezuela for American companies is severely limited. It would only benefit a handful of petroleum companies, while a full democratization led by President-elect Edmundo González Urrutia, who is seeking assistance from Donald Trump and Marco Rubio during the next few weeks to fulfill his ascension into power, would provoke a free market system that would provide ample opportunities for Venezuelans and international entrepreneurs to freely import and export all kinds of goods and services without the need of special bureaucratic allowances that would benefit some companies over others into sanctions. If you are a car driver in the United States, consider not filling up your tank in Chevron gas stations, because the petroleum they extract in Venezuela finances a dictatorial regime whose economic and political achievements have been so awful that many of our citizens have just decided to flee and become illegals all over the continent, because the utter lack of opportunities domestically does not seem to resolve if this 25-year-old regime remains in power. The same situation is in Cuba. They have been too many decades with a government that should be ousted, and the final step to oust it must be made now. The overthrow of Cuban and Venezuelan regimes is long overdue.